Here's a request that came in by email. This person says, please do a video of sunset colors over a mountain landscape. It's hard to tell over a mountain landscape. It's hard to tell what color to paint the distant mountains when the sun is setting behind them. This is going to sound like a broken record. Is that a thing anymore? Well, you're going to hear the same little sermon over and over again with these kinds of questions. How do you do X, Y, Z? Think about it. When the sun is setting behind mountains, if the sun is directly behind the mountain's going to be in shadow. That's one situation. But then lots of things are going to determine what happens there. What kind of weather is it? What is the area? What is the local color of the mountain to begin with? Or what if the sun is setting to one side or the other, but still behind it, like it is here? Here the sun seems to be setting about right over here, and then this one about right here. And even though these areas in here are in shadow, you can tell they're in shadow because the sun is on the other side of where we are. And you can tell that this area right here is in shadow because, again, the sun is on the other side. We're on one side, the sun's on the other. And that's how you can discern when something, a total area of a scene is in shadow. Ask yourself, where's the sun located? But then what happens and how do we take care of all this change in color that we see? We can see here where the sun, where the light is not hitting quite so much. We can see something of the color of how the mountains would be. Well, I'm going to be careful how I say that because this is still, the sun is still influencing that. So the whole key is observation. Ask yourself the right questions. And that's my goal in all these quick tips, is to teach you to explore potential. Explore possibilities instead of looking for how to do, because there is no such thing as how to do for the painter who wants to grow in his work. Now, if you just want to make pictures, yeah, watch those little how-to videos, how to do a mountain, how to do a flower, how to paint trees, look for those things and, don't ask any more questions. But if you want to grow as a painter, if you want to explore all the possibilities, if you want to really be able to go out in the landscape and to record what you see, learn how to see. Learn what changes because of all the conditions and because of your location, where you are, in relation to where the sun is and everything else too. All right, so that little lecture being over, let me show you what I would do, how I would approach this right here, and you see a similar thing happening right here. So we ask the right questions. And the question is, if I'm looking only at this little area right here, what do I see? Now, if I say I see mountains, that's the wrong answer. Because what does that tell me? It only tells me the fact of mountain. It doesn't tell me what's causing me to see that mountain the way I'm seeing it. And then I start asking the right questions. The right questions would be, well, what value do I see? What value relation? How light is this as compared to the sky? Or how dark is this compared to the sky and compared to this? And what colors do I see? And then we have those different characteristics of color. And so here's how I'd go about that. I would start with a value scale first of all, because I want to discover what is the value I'm looking at. And so you learn how to read this without a value scale, but the value scales, the various ones we have available to us, are really nice, wonderful tools. This one's readily available on almost any art supply store. These are wonderful tools for training how to see. And after a while, like any tool, these are like training wheels on a bike. But after a while, you don't even need that anymore, because you'll be able to, once you train yourself how to see, you'll be able to automatically detect what you're looking at. All right, so we have potential here. Every scene you look at has potential for being, for that area of that scene being one of these values, or in one of these value ranges. So let's just see, what is the potential? All right, now I've got these little holes punched here, and I hope you can see. All right, so then if I go to value 4, and let's put it right over that, let's get this so that it will stay right over this value, this range right here. See if I can get it right in there. You see that value, it's much lighter than value 4. So I compare the value of what I'm looking at with this, and then it was lighter than that, so I'll bring it on over here, and it's lighter than that, and I'm seeing that's very close. Very close, is it? No. Now if I bring it to this one, I see that's a little darker than what we would call number 1 on the value scale. Some people call that number 2. They call 0 the absolute white. So I would say, okay, we're in the range there of about value 2. You see that? Between value 1 and value 2. That tells you the value range. So, done with the value scale. Now I could do the same thing as I come up. As I continue to move the value scale across this, I should say that too, tell you that too. Then I can continue to see that it's gradually getting darker as it moves away from the sun. As the mountain range is moving away from the light source, you see it's gradually getting a little bit darker, although some of those darks do vary. So you got that information, but you know it's in this range right here. Now, let's put that right there for the moment. Next question is, what color are you looking at? You begin with the color wheel, because remember, we've got 3 parts of color, 3 characteristics of color that are within every single color we look at. Doesn't matter what it is. All right, so what color is it? Everybody says mountains, mountains in the distance are purple. That's misleading. Any other kind of always, any kind of that stuff you hear, forget it. You go after your own search. What are your eyes seeing? And so then what we do then is locate on the wheel the color that reads the closest to the colors we see on the wheel. We can start with purple, with violet, and we can see, now even though violet is very much darker than this, we can see some relationship. We see there's more red in that than that. And then if we pull it over to red violet, we see, yeah, it's closer to red violet, but it's a little warmer than red violet. And we pull it over to red. Now you have to hold in your mind what your tube colors do when you mix them with white. What's the result of your tube color when you mix it with white? Because mixing with white is what's going to give us that. And then I see a little bit more yellow than here. And it seems like this may be something I want to try, the red orange. All right, now what you do, okay, what value of the red orange? We've got two bits of information of what we are observing. We know we're dealing with very light in value, and we're going to experiment to see if red orange is actually what we're looking at there. There's one other thing we'll want to look for, and that is it how saturated is that color? Is it a highly saturated color? I mean, the strongest hue we can see, or is it a lower saturated color? We have to find that out in just a moment. But let's go for the hue first. So I would go then for some mixture or some tube color I know is red-orange. Now there are multiple ways to go about that, depending on what colors you have. You could mix alizarin with a little yellow in it. One of your either cadmium or Hansa or one of the yellows that it doesn't lean towards green, that has just the yellow or leans a little bit more towards yellow-orange. You can mix that into a little alizarin until you have the alizarin leaning towards red-orange is one way. Any of the cadmium reds, you can mix a yellow. In other words, any yellow mixed with any red will get you started in the right direction. Now I'm going to start with cadmium red light, because cadmium red light is a red-orange. So I'll just pull cadmium red light. Now this is an experiment. See, this is a step-by-step analysis of how we get that color, which was the question the person asked. So I'll just put that red-orange right there. Now, the other question I want to ask, the other thing I want to find out now is when I mix white with red-orange, is it going to give me this? Because I have those two bits of information. I have that it's light, and I have a guess that it may be red-orange, but I want to discover that. And so what I will do there then is create the same value. I will reach over for white. Now I know, you get to know these things too, and this is important. Every tube color has a tinting strength. That means that some it takes less of the color to mix in the white than it does others. And I know that the cadmium red-orange is a high tinting strength, meaning it's really, really strong. So I'm going to go really easy in it, not take very much, and mix it into this white and keep pulling white into it until I get it that value I located. And let's see. Now it's hard sometimes to read, so you squint. You squint and see, yeah, that's in that pretty much in that value range of what I'm looking at. Now I'll hold it up here and compare. You see that's very much the same value, but this seems a little bit stronger than what I'm looking at there. They're pretty much the same value, pretty much the same color, but this seems a little bit stronger. That means that it probably needs to be desaturated. All right, what do we use to desaturate it? Blue and orange desaturate each other. Now, I'll look at some other information I find here. As I'm moving out in this direction, I'm seeing this get more violet. You can see right here that this portion is getting more red-violet, and then as it moves over here, it begins to get more violet. So perhaps blue, because blue and red will create violet, so perhaps blue would be a good color to test this with. Would that be a good way to go? Then, as I'm developing the painting, I would be able to mix, so I just add a little bit more blue and vary the value once I get the saturation right. Does that make any sense thus far? I hope so. So just a little step-by-step experiment we do in order to understand how color works. All right, so I'm going to pull some. Now this time, which blue am I going to choose? If I choose phthalo blue, that's got too much yellow in it. And so it's not the phthalo blue. You can see right over here, phthalo blue is way over in here. It's not that close to red violet. And right now I want something that's going to change the hue, but I also want something that's going to help to neutralize or to cut down that saturation. So I would want to choose something closer to violet. See? And that would be, the color I would choose there would be ultramarine blue. Cobalt would probably do this just as well. But if I choose ultramarine blue, it leans towards blue-violet. And that will give me more control when I'm using the red-orange. And at the same time, because the blue has the orange in it, it's going to give me some desaturation. So when you learn what these colors do to each other, then you can figure out what to use when you're looking at a color and you're trying to achieve it. So I'm going to go for ultramarine blue here. I'm going to pull it right over here. Now, it's very, very dark. So the next thing I have to do before I go plopping this in here is get it the same value. So I'll pull a little bit of that. Well, I won't do it that way. I don't want to do it that way. I'm going to pull the white down like this, and I'm going to pull some of this ultramarine blue. Now, ultramarine blue is a very weak tinting strength, so it takes more ultramarine blue in proportion to the amount of white. So let's get it about the same value. There we go. That's pretty close to the same value. But don't just plop what you have on your palette knife down right here that you'll lose control. I'll put it beside it and I'll gradually pull a little bit at a time into this. And I want to just see it, see what it does when it, see how it changes it. You can see it's still feeling pretty much like the same color, but it is getting a little less neutral. And when let's get this, okay, that is pretty close. Now I think I got it, that's pretty close to what we're seeing right there. And you can see that it just gets darker as it goes over here. All right, so what I would do in that case then is I would make a mixture right here to play with of ultramarine blue and cadmium red light, or whatever red I'm using. I'd make a mixture and put a little bit more of that cadmium red light in it. And then I could use that mixture to control the value. And so when I'm making the mixture, I would need to be sure that I have it in that range of the red violet to the red orange. So I need it right in there someplace. Now that may sound a little bit it may sound a little confusing to some of you not used to working this way, but now you see what we have. We have a desaturated version of red violet, and that just needs to have a little bit more blue in it. But now if I have that neutralized mixture, I can add more blue. When it gets bluer, it's going to get more violet that is at that desaturated level. I can add more red when it gets redder. But I've got a neutral here that I can work with. All right, so in that case, I'll pull just a tiny bit of that neutral here and raise the value a bit. I may need to add a little bit more of the red in it too, because it is, there we go. See how neutralized that is. And you can see, yeah, still a little light. So let's add a little bit more red now into that neutral. So you see, if what you put in there causes it to lean too much in one direction, then you move in the other direction. You're just like seasoning food. You're trying to add. See now I need to add a little bit more of the blue into that, and that should be what we need right in there. There we go. You see that? So you can see just by that little bit I showed you there, if you use your observation, if you train yourself how to look, how to see the color, how to see the value, how to see the saturation of whatever you're looking at, you will then be able to find the minimum number of colors that's going to give you the full range of that you're going to need. So I didn't need 50, or that's going too far. I didn't need a dozen different tube colors to get that. We only needed 2 tube colors and white. But if you learn what the colors do to each other, look at the quick tip on the color wheel. Learn what colors do to each other, and train yourself how to see the hues you're looking at, the values you're looking at, and how saturated they are. All you need to do then is just pick it up and paint it. Be sure and view all of our quick tips. And while you're doing so, subscribe to the channel, click on the bell so you'll always get a notice when we produce a new quick tip, which is every week. And if you have a question, leave it in the comments section and we'll make a quick tip for you. Also, take a trip over to DianneMize.com where I have full-length lessons, downloads, DVDs, lots of other stuff there, some free stuff for you. And while you're there, you can subscribe to the newsletter, and that way you'll always be informed every time we do something new.